Welcome back to Iconic Seasons, where we're exploring the pre-Biff timeline in order to put to bed and restore our future legacy as Hoosiers fans. Today, we're exploring a pivotal moment in our state's sporting history, the arrival of Bob Knight and the birth of a basketball dynasty. Picture this, December 1971. Indiana basketball was about to undergo a transformation so profound that it would reshape not just a team, but an entire sporting culture. At the center of this revolution stood Bob Knight, a 31-year-old coach with an intensity of a drill sergeant and the strategic mind of a chess master. Knight wasn't just another coach. He was a revolutionary, fresh from leading the Army's basketball program, bringing a military precision that would become his trademark. Where previous coaches had embraced the hurrying Hoosier style of fast-paced, high-scoring basketball, Knight introduced something radical: defense. Let me paint a picture of just how serious he was about defense. During the first practice sessions, Knight spent an entire month, 4 weeks, focusing slowly on defensive fundamentals. No offensive plays, no scoring drills, just pure, uncompromising defensive strategies. His players were essentially participating in a basketball boot camp. The numbers tell a stark story. In 1970-71 season, the Hoosiers were averaging 90.8 points per game. Under Knight's new system, that dropped to 73.6. Fans were confused. They'd yell, "Shoot," from the stands. Some even booed when the team slowed down the play. Does this sound familiar to anyone? It happened even then. Fans are passionate. I think that the important part is to not overwhelm the system. And I think that's what happened this last year, is that the fans overwhelmed the system. The culture flipped and it became an us versus them thing. And we can't do that with whatever team we're watching. And I think sports in general in America, we should do more things that help us to enjoy the game, because that's ultimately what it's all about, is entertainment and enjoyment. But back to Knight. He wasn't interested in crowd pleasing by any means. He was building something more enduring than momentary excitement. And then came Assembly Hall, a cathedral of basketball that has become legendary.
Well, it's like on the pro level, when they had the old Boston Garden, the mystique of Boston Garden and the banners and everything swaying back and forth. Just being around the pro game, and so many guys that have had a chance to play in the Assembly Hall, they all talked about, man, I hate playing that building, man. It's just something about it, all that red and those banners. People always thought that Assembly Hall was a very small arena when you look at it on television, the way that the seating was, but didn't realize that it's at 17.5. And I remember on my visit, Coach Knight brought me into the Assembly Hall, and it was dark, and only the light was shining on the banners, the Big Ten banners, the championship banners. And he said, and just walking in there, you see the banners swaying back and forth, and you're envisioning what it would be like being full. And that next day, I got a chance to see it full when they played the Iowa game. But it's just something of coming into that building, and you see the tradition. You see faces of former players that have played, that are either working in the community, working in the area, and they're coming back for games, or they're stopping by for a practice. There's just everything about Indiana basketball that is family.
Before this, players were literally kicking sawdust off their shoes before stepping into the court. The new arena was more than a building. It was a statement of Indiana basketball's ambitions. Assembly Hall wasn't perfect. The steep stairs, the partially obstructed views, they weren't features, but they were challenges to the viewing that people had. Now they're a part of the mystique. Visiting teams just didn't play a game here. They entered a hostile environment designed to intimidate. And the numbers were staggering. 372 wins against just 52 losses. That's 88% home winning record. It speaks volumes about the fortress that Knight built.
It's totally different than a lot of other arenas that you'll go to, and the reason I think it is a theater of basketball. I mean, if you look at the sight lines, are perfect for shooters, and that goes with just really Indiana high school basketball history, Indiana history. I mean, the depth perception behind the goal is very close to you. In most other arenas, it's very deep. And so it's hard for other teams to come, I think, into that arena and, number one, adjust to that. Number two, the crowd is set in that theater-type atmosphere. And when that place gets rocking, there's no louder place in all of basketball.
The cultural transformation went beyond basketball as well. Knight instilled a philosophy of discipline that permeated everything. For students, getting tickets wasn't just a transaction, it was part of a ritual. Season ticket holders received coupon books, exchanging them week by week for game entry. The North End bleachers weren't just seats, they were a community, a shared experience of passion and pride. Key players like Steve Downing became the embodiment of Knight's philosophy. Although at the time, before he graduated, Knight would rail on him, and it was often the best players like Alfred that Knight would be the hardest on because he knew they could take it, and he knew that it would set an example for the other players if he was picking on or chastising the players who were the best. Downing's Assembly Hall debut was a record-setting 26 rebounds in a single game, a record that still stands. He wasn't just a player, he was a symbol of new Indiana basketball. By 1973, just 2 years after Knight's arrival, the results spoke for themselves. A Big Ten title, a Final Four appearance.
The ball's going out of bounds towards where Chuck Crabb and all the statisticians and all that on the floor would be, and they have kind of the red curtain around the table that they sit at. Well, the ball was going there, and I dove for the ball, grabbed it, and slid all the way underneath there. And, still, it was not our ball because I touched it before it went out of bounds, but it was, just a hustle effort that at that time, Coach was really trying to make sure that we were a team like that. And I came out of there, and, there was, I think, maybe some polite applause. And I can't remember if he got on the PA, if that was his first time on the PA, or if it was just he turned to the crowd and said, get off of your rear ends and appreciate this. It was the first of many times that I think he spoke to the crowd, but I do remember that as kind of a fun time because I was going, geez, gosh, Coach is really into this one. Oh, St. Louis was wild. It was just the neatest thing. And in those days, you had to get to the Final Four to get onto national TV. And that was a big deal. And Kurt Gowdy would announce the players. And the big deal was being announced in the starting lineup. We played UCLA in the afternoon, and they were the team. And again, it was the only time after that first game in Assembly Hall that in my collegiate career I had that same feeling of just being out of body, and it was just too much, it was just, oh my gosh, this is the Final Four, finally here, dreamed about it, and just couldn't really feel my fingers or toes or anything like that. And that was an unexpected trip to the Final Four, but then that certainly set the stage for it, and set the bar where we wanted it to be, and that's where we want to go every year, so it was a neat year.
It wasn't just luck. It was the result of relentless preparation, uncompromising discipline, and a vision that saw basketball as more than a game, as a vehicle for life lessons. Knight's strategies weren't just about winning. They were about building character. Every drill, every defensive stance, every moment of practice was a lesson in commitment, hard work, and team unity. He wasn't just coaching basketball. He was shaping young men. One of the things I think about is Landon Turner. There was a moment later in Knight's career, and we'll get into that, where Knight could have maybe stepped away after he had achieved so much in college basketball, just retired and done something else. But it was the people that he came back for. And maybe that's what he lost ultimately, was his reason for being there was the people. When we talk about the Bob Knight era, we're not just discussing a coaching tenure. We're talking about a cultural revolution, a moment when Indiana basketball transformed from a local passion into a national powerhouse, a brand. A time when discipline became an art form and defense was poetry in motion. In our next episode, we'll dive into the perfect season of 1976, the undefeated year that cemented Indiana's place in basketball history. But for now, remember, in Indiana, basketball isn't just a sport, it's a way of life. Till next time,
keep your dribble low and your eyes up.